Good morning. Today is the second day of Sivan and the 22nd of May. We're holding by the second reading of Parashat Naso. Like we said, we're probably going to do this for 2 weeks. So what we started with yesterday was the general idea behind Naso, which literally means like the word to marry, nisuin, marriage in Hebrew is nisuin. It comes from the same root as naso. And what it means is that when you marry two people, you're basically creating a situation in which opposites will dwell together in one place. That's the idea behind marriage. You have a man and a woman, and they are clearly about as opposite as can be, and they're now going to be together in the same, sharing the same life, and that's quite a feat. So it's interesting that we usually associate marriage with love, and the reason that we associate it with love, with the heart, is because of, I believe we said this yesterday, that the mind finds it very difficult to tolerate paradox. Mind finds it very difficult to understand two things that are opposites and sustain them at the same time. So therefore, we sort of turn to the heart. But the point is to turn to the heart in an informed way and understand that if I try to make room in my head for my spouse, I won't be able to do it so easily. I need to make room in my heart, because really the heart is where this ability to carry paradoxes manifests. Okay, so yesterday we started talking about this whole thing of Naso and paradox and being able to sustain it. Yesterday we read about Naso et rosh bnei Gershon. So lift the head of Levi. Today's reading is lift the family of Merari also, not because they're the two families that were left. Kehat, we read about Kehat and their appointed duties at the end of Midbar. At the beginning of Naso, the first and second duties for the two tribes of Gershon and Merari. Now we want to look a little bit at their names. What does Gershon mean? What does Merari mean? Remember, yesterday we spoke about this idea that the Zohar describes the state of paradox in the heart as the heart has joy on one side and bitterness on the other. Gershon and Merari are related to these two sides of the heart. Let's see how. Gershon literally means to chase something away, to vanquish it. What do you vanquish? So it says there is a type of tshuva, meaning a person can do tshuva where they are so successful that they're able to chase away the evil inclination, whatever was troubling them, they're able to get it out of their system. This doesn't always happen, but there are cases like this. There are things like that. For instance, a person decides to keep Shabbos. My wife, when she started to keep Shabbos, she told me it was very, very difficult for her. So somebody gave her advice. He said, have a room where you keep Shabbos. So that's what she did. She had one room in her apartment where she kept Shabbos, and everywhere else she acted normally. And slowly, and that's a verse from the Torah, me'at me'ata gershenu mipanecha. Slowly, I will chase it away from you. And so the person gets used to this idea of keeping Shabbos. Over time, over a few months, a year, it becomes natural. And then they can maybe flip it and they say, the entire apartment, I keep Shabbos, and I have one room where I don't keep Shabbos. But eventually they don't need that either, and it's gone. And it's completely gone. And that is tshuva that was able to chase away the bad habit, to replace it with something else. And that's called tshuva out of joy, because in the end, the person is joyful because he sees he's been completely successful in what he wanted to achieve. So that's the right side. The right side of the heart is full of joy. And that is the family of Gershon, the ones that we read about yesterday. Today, we read about the family of Merari. Merari literally means, mar means bitterness. And that's the tshuva out of bitterness. Why is the person bitter when he does tshuva? Supposedly, coming close to God should be something very joyful. But the truth is that there are things that we can't chase away, that simply we're coping with them again and again and again. It doesn't really end. There's no real end in sight. Or another way of saying it is not exactly that I can't get it out, but I can't find the root of the issue. I'm looking for the root, but I can't find where exactly does this craving, this need that I have, where does it exactly start from? If I could only find where the root was, I could uproot it completely, and then I'd have complete joy. But the way it is, it's like one of these bitter, what do you call these? Like a prickly thorn that grows in my garden, and no matter what I do, it keeps growing back. These weeds that I just can't get rid of. So the weeds cause me bitterness. On the one hand, I'm clearing it out, and now it looks clean, and now it looks good. On the other hand, I know that most likely in a week I'm going to come back, and it's going to be there exactly the way it was before, and I'm going to have to keep doing this for a long time. So these two families from the Levites, they embody this idea that the heart can contain both types of tshuva. There's tshuva that gives us joy because we're able to really transform ourselves. But there's also, we have to know that there is tshuva that has bitterness associated with it because we can't completely transform the negative aspect. And it comes back, but it's still tshuva. A person has to know that this is still tshuva. But the heart has the ability to carry both sides. And that's what we're looking at today with the family of Gershon that we talked about yesterday, being able to chase away the evil completely from our hearts. And Merari, the family that's talked about today, where they can't. Let's look at what, shortly, because I can't see the time. Oh, I can't see the time. We have a few more minutes. So let's look at shortly at what their duties were. What did the family of Gershon do in the tabernacle? And what did the family of Merari do? If you remember, the word Naso also means to carry, not just to lift. All the Levites carried the tabernacle when it was decommissioned every time they moved from one camp to another. The tribe of Gershon was given the duty of taking all the coverings of the tabernacle, everything that was used as a roof for the tabernacle, everything that basically made it into a building. These coverings were made out of skins, and some were not just skins, but also fabrics that were made. All of these represent what we call the surrounding light of the soul. The soul has two surrounding powers. They're called Chaya and Yechida, the living one and the singular one. They are beyond their consciousness. They come from somewhere that they never truly embody within the person. Especially the second one called the Yechida, the singular one, is always outside of the body. It's always hovering around the body. That's the description. Why is it that way? Because this part of the soul is always connected to godliness. It never loses its connection with God. Whereas the soul that's embodied within the body, that is part of the body, the three lower levels of the soul, nefesh, ruach, neshama, what we call them is psyche, spirit, and soul. These three levels do disconnect when a person does something wrong. So that they're taken for a ride, let's call it. That when you do an avera, when you do something wrong, they have to be included in it. So there's a benefit to the higher levels of the soul that don't take part and are not part of actions that are not permitted. Because of that, they're always connected. Because they're always connected, when a person does tshuva from a higher place called higher tshuva, he's able to do it with joy. And it's able to actually change and transform the negative faculties inside, the negative powers inside, the negative cravings, the wants that we have. When it comes from above, it has more power. But the tshuva that comes from below is associated with the parts of the soul that are ingrained in the body. They're embodied inside the body. That was the tribe of Merari. Not the tribe, the family, sorry. What did they carry? They carried the beams, the pillars of wood that made up the exterior of the temple wall, the tabernacle's walls. A beam like this is called a keresh. Keresh literally means like a wood, a piece of wood. So these were pieces of wood that were constructed together to make the wall, the exterior wall of the tabernacle. But it's not so simple because keresh also permutes to spell sheker. It permutes to spell a lie. There's a part about this whole, like we explained, this whole attempt to do tshuva from within that doesn't always work completely. It doesn't always stick. And so a person calls it that it's lying to him. I did tshuva, but still I wasn't able to transform it. So it remains in a certain sense that I'm bitter about my tshuva. It doesn't mean that I need to stop. It just means that it's disheartening that I try something and it doesn't really work the way I'd like it to. But we need both types of work. Even though there are parts of reality that without help from above, we cannot transform ourselves, we still are not supposed to give up on them. Because eventually, the help from above will come, and then transformation will happen. It just depends on when God decides to do that. One example of that is the redemption. The redemption, in a certain sense, is a topic of bitterness for us. Why is it bitter? Because everything we do, everything we try to do, it seems to us, and everything the Lubavitcher Rebbe tried to do, it seems like it doesn't work. Why? Because in the end, we're working from the inside. We need also to have the work of Hashem from the outside to make it really stick. And when Hashem makes it work, when Hashem adds his input into it, and that's from the surrounding light, then it's like Gershon that we said means it vanquishes. It vanquishes the evil entirely from the world, and the world is transformed into the world that we're waiting for. And so you need both aspects. Merari, the work that we do from here, from the inside, from below, and the work that's done from the outside. To give a parable for all of this, it's well known that in order to break out of a prison, you have to have help from the outside. No person can break out of a prison if he doesn't have help from the outside. So on the one hand, you have to continue working on the inside. And then when the help comes from the outside, you meet halfway, and then the breakout happens. And then the change happens, the transformation happens. And God willing, the rest of the week we'll continue to look at different aspects of paradox within this week's Parsha.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day, everyone.
You too. Shalom, Leklo.